Hey everybody, welcome to the channel Golf with James. So today I'm going to be reviewing two shoes that I've personally been using for the past 4 to 6 months. They are two shoes by Adidas, the ZG23 and also the Codechaos 22. And so if you follow this channel, you know that anything that I personally review is something that I've used for quite some time. So you're not going to be getting a review by someone who's had a product for just about a week. You're going to be getting a review from somebody who's used a product for at least 4 to 6 months. So if you're interested in a long-term perspective, let's get into it. All right. A little bit about me. I am a Bay Area golfer. I've been golfing for about the last 2.5 years. My current handicap is a 9 and I have had almost no coaching except for items like grip and some other basic items. So if you are curious about watching a 9 handicap try to get to a 6 handicap in his 3rd year and do it on his own, then feel free to subscribe. I like to put a lot of vlog posts up and just videos about things that I'm currently working on. I also like to do product reviews and that's what we are here for. So let's get into it. Let's start off with the Codechaos 22. I'm not gonna be doing so much of the marketing aspect of these shoes, like talking about what kind of material is in the insole or the outer sole. I'm gonna be more talking about my experience using both shoes. So as you can tell, the Codechaos 22 is a spikeless version of the golf shoe that Adidas produces. I would say that depending on the colorway that you choose, the Codechaos 22 in comparison to the ZG23 is gonna be a little bit more resilient when it comes to staining, because as you can see, this is a little bit more of a gray colorway, and so if you get some dirt on it and mud on it, which this is a waterproof shoe, both shoes are waterproof shoes, that's the whole point. You're gonna get this wet, you're gonna get this muddy. And so the point of this shoe isn't necessarily to keep it pristine. The point of this shoe is to keep your shoes dry and to give you grip. So how does the Codechaos 22, even though it doesn't have spikes, perform in wet conditions? I would say that it will do just fine for morning back 9s. But if you are gonna be playing in some wetter conditions where it's a little bit more sloshy, you may wanna consider another shoe that actually has spikes. I will say that this is one of the most warm shoes that I've worn from a golf perspective, which I don't mind, because if I'm wearing this shoe and it's cold outside, then I do want my feet to stay toasty. And that was one of the things that really jumped out at me when I first used the Codechaos 22. My feet were warm and toasty, and I felt like somehow it was being ventilated because my feet weren't getting super sweaty or anything, even as I was walking through the course, which I tend to like to walk. All right, so the ZG23. The ZG23, as you can tell, I am a sucker. I am a huge sucker for white shoes. Downside about white shoes is that you're gonna get much more staining on it, and if you don't do a good job of, I guess, upkeeping the shoe, then it's gonna show, right? But at the same time, when I step out onto the course, you know, I expect to get a little bit dirty, especially when I'm playing in the wintertime, and so I don't mind that so much. This is the spiked version, and these have soft spikes. I will say that if you do go to the range a lot, these soft spikes do tend to get ground down and tend to break. And so you're gonna have to buy replacements. But I will say that by the time you need replacements, it might be time to get new shoes depending on how many rounds you play, because both shoes, like I talked about, are waterproof, and so water doesn't get in, but also moisture doesn't get out. So if you're walking a lot, if you are playing 36 holes a day every time you get out, then the inside of these shoes definitely are gonna get a little smelly after about 40 rounds. All right, so what else can I say about this shoe? I will say that one issue that I did find with the Codechaos 22, which I didn't have on this one, is that the tongue and how it works in the shoe provides 0 issues in terms of discomfort. The Codechaos 22 actually, I totally forgot to mention this. I will say that the tongue sometimes puts a little extra pressure on the top of my feet every once in a while. Not all the time, but every once in a while. So from a pure comfort perspective, like I talked about, the Codechaos 22 does keep me a little warmer, but the actual comfort overall of the ZG23 is definitely a winner if I was trying to compare both shoes. Now, which shoes should you pick? I will say I use both shoes as my primary golf shoes, and I do have a couple other shoes that I've just collected over the past 2 years that just don't see as much use. So I'm talking about brands like New Balance or Puma, and those shoes just don't get enough use. Why? Because if I'm gonna be playing a back nine where I feel like I'm gonna have a decent amount of traction on the tee box, I'm gonna be taking out the Codechaos 22, especially if I have errands to run afterward, because if it's spikeless, it just doesn't seem as out of place when I'm running my errands. Whereas if I want to play in like drizzly conditions, or I know like it rained really hard the night before, I'm gonna be wearing my ZG23s because the traction that I get from the spikes are just gonna be better than the spikeless version. But like I talked about, the Codechaos 22, the traction is surprisingly good. So if you are looking at either shoe, hopefully this helps you get a little bit more perspective on somebody who's used it for the last 4 to 6 months. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it down in the comments section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, thanks again for joining my channel to watch this video. Like I said, I do post some other things, so if you wanna watch that grind, subscribe and follow along. All right, see you for the next one.